Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good afternoon, everybody. I am Jérôme Magrin, professor of geography at Paris I University and director of the UMR PRODIG. I am very pleased to introduce this new seminar on Sudan. The UMR PRODIG is a geography research laboratory that is increasingly opening up to other social sciences. The members of PRODIG study the relationships between development and the environment in southern countries from a territorial perspective. For a long time, Alice Frank was our only specialist on Sudan, while several members of the laboratory had long been working on neighboring Chad. But in recent years, we have seen an increase in research and researchers at PRODIG on Sudan. And today we have a whole team that we tend to call the Sudanese Corner, with Alice Frank, Raphaël Chevrillon-Guibert, Khadija Medani, which maybe she's attending at distance, Mohamed Salah, Malat Ahmed, and Clément Dehaye, who recently joined the team. So they are the initiators of the seminar that bring us together today. This seminar, entitled Sudan at the Crossroads, war, aims to shed light on the situation in Sudan based on available scientific and expert knowledge. As we all know, Sudan has been at war for far too many months now, and the organizers and their guests intend to provide us with reading grids to help us to see through the fog of war. So the seminar is led by a quartet comprising Raphaël Chevrillon-Guibert, Clément Dehaye, Alice Frank, and Mohamed Salah, whom I would like to thank for this very interesting initiative. Thank you, all of you. The speakers will be either scientists or experts with various backgrounds, members of civil society, think tank, political figures, depending on the subjects. Each session will be organized around a specific theme on a monthly basis, if I'm not wrong. Today, we will discuss the social and political dynamics of conflict in Darfur and the implications for the Sahel. Next sessions will be on water issues, land issues, gold issues, agriculture issues related to the conflict. I'm now pleased to give the floor to Malat Ahmed, who will be presenting today's session more in detail. Thank you, Malat.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and Hababkum. I stand before. Hello, everyone. Hababkum. I stand before you today with a heavy heart as we gather to address a crisis that continues to be unfolding in Sudan. So let us approach this seminar with an open mind, compassionate spirit, and commitment to make a positive impact. So we will start with Mr. Musab Abdulmajid, who is a human rights researcher, worked for SUDO UK from 2012 until 2017, and he is a former human rights officer with the UNIMED and former senior protection assistant for UNHCR Sudan, and the founder and executive director of SOMUD Center for Psychosocial Rehabilitation. So Mr. Abdulmajid will present the social and political dynamics of conflicts in Darfur and the implication for the Sahel. The floor is yours, Mr. Abdulmajid.
I think you are mute, Musab.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Musab Abdulmajid. and I'm human rights researcher. So I'm very glad to be here with you this afternoon to talk about the dilemma of Sudan. And first of all, I am very thankful for PRODIG and PRODIG Research Unit and the Research Institute for Sustainable Development for organizing this seminar. And I wish that I'll be able to cast a light on the issues that matter to the distinguished audience, as well as also to serve the purpose of the organizers. Dear colleagues, allow me first of all to start my presentation by taking you a little bit back to the events that preceded the April 15 war, to see the correlations of those incidents that took place in Darfur with the ongoing war. But before that, allow me also to say that all the information that I'll be presenting to you this afternoon have been gathered from various resources. And I believe that some of those information are still need to be further verified. The first stage of the conflict after the fall of al-Bashir regime, Darfur has experienced a significant incidence that in a way or another has something to do with the former regime of al-Bashir. So after the fall down of the head of the regime, the Security Committee of al-Bashir regime took the power, not to respond to the demands of the revolution, but to kill the time and to circumvent the demands of the masses and eliminate them. And this was clear after the dispersal of the sit-in in front of the military HQ. The dispersal was conducted in a very brutal manner against the protesters. So the first incidents that took place in Al Jinaina, it was on 30 December 2019 in a place or IDP camp called Krinding Camp. And the purpose of the incidents or the attack on the IDPs at their camp was initially targeted the civilian state governor at that time, who is a prominent human rights defender. His name is Abdulmajid, because before he was appointed as a state governor to Al Jinaina, in a public forum, he announced that he is going to help any person from the former regime if the evidence proves that he's guilty and they have committed corruption. So that announcement was perceived by the members of the government in West Darfur as something not good for their interest. And therefore they thought of resisting any kind of implementation of rule of law. In April 2021, another incident occurred in an Arab, when an Arab woman reportedly killed by a Masalit man in Wadirati. Wadirati is 3 kilometers away from El Jinena. And as a reaction to that incident, another IDP camp was attacked, and about 40 people were reported killed, and 20 were injured, and almost all houses were burned. So another incident also in September 2022, when the IDPs who have displaced from their camps to the government facility return again to their camps, they were also attacked again for the second time, following also a killing incident of an Arab leader in Krinding camp. So the Arab militia, along with the RSF, have attacked the camp, and most of the people of the camp displaced again to the government facilities. So according to the IDPs themselves, people who were accused of killing an Arab and attacking Arab were hired by the NCP regime, National Congress Party regime, in order to attack Arab, and the national security apparatus are very aware that in Darfur, when you killed an Arab person, then the reaction will be very severe, because there is a tradition and culture among Arabs that if their members is being killed by someone, then they will immediately retaliate. So because they knew that Arab will retaliate, then they hire people to kill an Arab so that they can attack and take their revenge. The purpose of creating instability and security instability in West Darfur was conducted deliberately. The second purpose of it is to destabilize the civilian-led government to be occupied and engage with the security problems, not only in West Darfur, but also in many other states of Darfur. So, and here I would also like to say that the security incidents that have taken place in West Darfur and other Darfur states are not only against the civilian-led government at that time, but also some of the incidents were also deliberately created by the South Sudan armed forces when they start having differences with the RSF. So for example, in a place called Krenik locality, 65 kilometers east of El Jinena, in 2022 and 2023, the place has witnessed 2 incidents of killing an Arab, and then followed by very severe and brutal attack against the indigenous population in Krenik. So this attack resulted in a displacement, killing of innocent civilian, and burning of their houses. But when you go deep to examine the root causes or the causes of the incident, you find that those Arab who were killed, they were killed by the military intelligence. According to an eyewitnesses, and according to the native administration, who I have talked to at the time, they acknowledge that the two incidents were created by the military because the RSF mostly composed of members from Arabs, and Arab has a problems with Masalid for long time since in 1994 when al-Bashir visited West Darfur for the first time, and he promised to give a land and Amara for Arab. Then Masalid were unhappy with that decision, and then they start having problem over land and with Arabs. So the national security, the military intelligence with their ally, the National Security, the National Congress Party, were planning to create all these problems in West Darfur. So the other reason, because also the RSF also having differences and conflict of interest with the SAF over resources in Jabal Moon. Jabal Moon is an area which is located on the north side of El Geneina, about also 80 something kilometer, and it is known by agricultural land, and it has full resources, mineral resources, and gold, uranium, and so on and so forth. So both the RSF and SAF have intention to occupy that area in order to benefit from the resources there. The RSF had an agreement with Emirates company to go and mine golds in Jabal Moon, and then the SAF incited the local population in Jabal Moon to not allow the RSF to reach their area in order to occupy the mine, the gold area. So when the RSF did not attack Jabal Moon directly, but rather they used Arab to attack, and then they were bagging them from behind because they don't want to appear that RSF is having a problem with Misiria Jabal in Jabal Moon. So that is why they used Arab in order to reach the place and occupy the area there. So Jabal Moon is also witnessed so many events, like 2 or 3 events. I cannot really recall it, but I think almost 2 events took place. So, and as a result of that, the local population have crossed the border to Chad. So the other thing is that also the former Wali of West Darfur, the late Wali who was killed recently by the RSF, was also a part of the plan to allow the Emirates company to reach the area and mine the gold. So at that time, the state governor of West Darfur has a coalition as a leader of armed movement, as a coalition with the RSF. Hello?
Yeah, we follow you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. So I was saying that the state director, I mean, the state governor of West Darfur used to have a coalition with the RSF. And then he also used to have a secret relation with SAF. Then when the RSF discovered that, they started having problem with him. And finally, the SAF were able to monopolize the state governor until he agreed to arm the use of Masalit in order to fight by proxy for the SAF. And this is what we have witnessed in West Darfur during the ongoing war. So I will come to that point. I will also talk about it briefly. So this is the first incidents that have taken place before the ongoing war. So I believe that Darfur was chosen by the SAF and the NCP to be the battlefield for the counter-revolution due to the lack of political awareness and lack of strong civil society that can resist their plans. Therefore, they carried out their plans through the native administration and security committees, security apparatus, in order to destabilize the situation. So this is why West Darfur in particular, and other Darfur state also, were chosen as battlefield in order to resist the revolution. The NCP also worked and created conflicts in many areas where there were no historical even differences. For example, if we look at the incidents that occur in Toulouse, in South Darfur, between Fallata and Rizegat, we find out that Fallata and Rizegat used to live peacefully, and they never had any problem among themselves. They even have intermarriage, and they share a lot of common culture and so on and so forth. But because of the lack of political awareness and because of weak civil society organization, then the NCP started creating problem among different tribes in order to not to allow the civilian government to make any progress, because if any progress being made by the civilian government, then NCP members will not have a place to return to the power again. So that is why they creating problems here and there. And we also, one of the characteristics of the incidents that preceded the 15 April war is that in most places that have witnessed incidents and attack against civilian, so it is characterized by the withdrawal of the SAF and police, and sometimes even RSF. And when you ask them why the SAF and police and RSF withdraw, they tell you that because there is there is no adequate forces to intervene and protect the civilian. And sometimes the RSF also justifying their withdrawal by avoiding potential accusation of its involvement in the attack. So because, as I mentioned earlier, that RSF are mostly composing from Arab tribe, and if the RSF is involved in any, or if the RSF is present in any area where incidents have taken place, then they will be accused by supporting Arab and so on and so forth. So these are the incidents that have taken place before 15 April war. So now let me shift to the incidents that have taken place in El Junaina after the war started in Khartoum. So the war started in Khartoum, as you may know, on 15 April, and then El Junaina was very quiet at that time, and even the native administration, the youth, the civil society organizations, the community leaders have all come together and agreed that El Junaina should not go into war, because people were very tired from the previous incidents, and their situation even does not allow such incidents to happen again. And they have agreed that they will go and talk to the military, police, and the RSF in order not to go into war. And also they have planned to disseminate peace messages among the community in the market, the mosque, and so on. But unfortunately, on 24th of April, the native administration, along with the civil society, agreed to go to the market and start talking to the people to assure them that nothing will happen in West Darfur. But unfortunately, on that day, the SAF, with about 11 or 12 technical vehicles, approached the area of RSF and opened fire against them, and then they withdraw and return to their compound. Immediately after that, the clashes started between the Sudanese Alliance forces led by the late Wali and the RSF. And then later, in the afternoon, all arms stores of the police, of the national security, and of the CRP, Central Reserve Police, were open for the IDPs to collect weapons. I think IDPs have taken almost 8,000 pieces of guns, and they start fighting with Arabs. So the war in El Junaina continued for almost 2 months, and characterized by looting, killing, and rape. So I'm not really sure whether Muhammad has shared my presentation with you so that you can have a look at the figures of the houses looted, people killed, and women who have women who have experienced sexual assault. I hope that Muhammad will share it with you later so that you can have a look at the figures.
Yeah.
So,
we have it. We can see the figures.
okay, that's good. That's good. So the SAF from its side also arm both sides to conflict. The SAF has armed Arab also and has gives them very clear instruction to destroy the government facilities. And this is this information I got it from someone who is very, very reliable and has a very strong connection with the military intelligence. That some of the Arab, in particular Mohammed, the relative of Musa Hilal, they were armed by the military in order to destroy the government facilities and to loot people's houses so that it can be ascribed to the RSF, because they are all Arab. And then whenever something happens at this chaotic situation, it will be attributed to the RSF. So, and as I also mentioned, that one of the result of the war in West Darfur also very reliable sources confirm that there is one mass grave in El Geneina, on the west side of El Geneina. So after the Al-Wali was killed, many people were also killed at near his office, and people have fled to Chad. And then later the RSF with its ally militia, they have collected the bodies of those who were killed and buried them in a mass grave on the west side of El Geneina. And also, there is another conflict also erupted in Sirba locality. It is administratively under West Darfur, located 16 kilometers north of El Geneina, and predominantly inhabited by Eranga. It is one of the African tribes that regarded as a tribe supporting the SAF, and they were actually armed by SAF in order to fight on their behalf against Arab. So the war in Sirba started in late June, I think, or early July, where an Arab man was shot, injured, and then the following day, the Arab have gathered from different places, including Geneina, Zalingi, and Saraf Umbra, and attack the people in Sirba. So the first day of the attack, there was a very fierce resistance by the residents of Sirba, but the second day, Arab made advance and has reached inside the town, started killing people, burning houses, burning the market, looting, and then the whole population of Sirba have crossed the border to Chad. the last one, the last incident, which was occurred in June, was in a place called Mastere. Mastere is administrative unit located on south direction of Al Junaina, 65 kilometers away from Al Junaina. So the majority of the population in Mastere are Masalid, and there was forces affiliated to the Sudan Alliance movement led by Khamis. So they were there. But Mastere, the problem between Arab and Masalit in Mastere started since 2020, where a Masalit man was killed, and then the conflict erupted there. And since 2020, Arab were prevented from going to Mastere, from accessing basic rights, education, marketing, hospitals, and so on. They were prevented. So then there was a lot of attempts by the civil society, by the government, native administration to resolve the problem between Arab and Masalit in Mastere, but all their efforts were failed. And then when the Arab realized that the forces of the Sudanese alliance are there, then and the South have also armed the local population, then Arab attacked the area, and about 87 people were killed, and or 78 people were killed, and 37 others were injured. And all the residents also have crossed the border to Chad. And these 78 people who were killed were all buried by their residents in one grave. So the I also wanted to give a brief introduction. This introduction was supposed to be at the beginning of the presentation, but I think I scrolled down. So the marginalization, I mean, so historically, Darfur population has been divided into two categories: pastoralists and non-pastoralists, or farmer and herders. They often have problems over land and crop destruction issues. But the governments that rule the country since the independence were not serious enough to resolve the land issue and to demarcating the roads for grazing and so on. So this issue have developed over time and exacerbated. So until it has reached a stage of violence in which the regimes of Sudan have played a very central role in exacerbating and escalating them. So the land system in Darfur is traditionally known as Hakura, as you may already know. So it is Hakura. It is a land that owned by a certain ethnic group. This is not only in Darfur, but also in many other places or parts in Sudan. So the Hakura is ruled mostly by the native administration of that particular tribe. So West Darfur is also known as a land of Masalit, land of Masalit. So Masalit have been there for a long, long time, historically, with another tribes. So in West Darfur, for example, al-Bashir has visited West Darfur in 1994 for his electoral campaign. And for him to get supporters, at that time, he gave the Arab Amara in West Darfur, which means to recognize the or recognition of the highest state authority that Arab have land in West Darfur. And this decision by al-Bashir has angered the Masalit population, and this has exacerbated to the already existing conflict between farmers and herders. So additionally, the marginalization that Darfur has experienced since 1965 in terms of development with its broader concept, social justice, and the fragility of the social structure have all contributed negatively to the ongoing political unrest. Now, you can find tribes that are considered themselves farmers are inclined to support the RSF, while the tribes that are regarded as herders are also supporting the SAF. So, the tribes that consider to be farmers are supporting the SAF, while the herders are supporting the RSF. So here, let me take an example of what has happened in Toulouse. So despite the differences between Fallata and Rizegat, Fallata has, with their native administration, have decided to support the RSF because they believe that they are pastoralists, they are herders, and they are sharing common culture and common norms and heritage with Arabs. So they have decided to support the RSF, while Masalit in West Darfur are supporting the SAF. And many other, like Eranga also in Sirba, are supporting SAF. The other slide is, I want to also cast a light on the formation of militias in Darfur to counter the insurgency in 2003. So the RSF militia were formed by the NCP in 2013 as an evolution of the broader border guard and Popular Forces Defense Militia and Central Reserve Police to counter the Darfur insurgency under the supervision of the SAF and national security apparatus. So after their mission ended in 2012, which was to curb the advancement of the Darfur armed movement, the issue of Yemen emerged in 2015. Then the NCP regime declared its alliance with the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and decided to send the RSF personnel to fight by proxy for Emirates and Saudi Arabia. So this was the time when the Saudi Arabian Emirate government started to deal directly with the RSF commander. And it was also this agreement or this kind of dealing between Emirates and RSF commander was with the consent of al-Bashir regime. So, but after the downfall of al-Bashir regime, the SAF opened the door for the RSF to monopoly the gold mines and export the gold to Emirates and own companies. And that empowered the RSF to obtain weapons and monopolize or mobilize youth through their native administration and recruit them into the RSF and pay them a very huge amount of salary that even the SAF cannot afford to pay its soldier. So based on the mentioned factors and the historical marginalization that Darfur has gone through, so these are the factors that had negatively contributed to polarization of tribes to fight side by side with the militia and with also the military forces. So it is worth mentioning that the SAF and its ally NCP do not have a principled position on the existence of militia. But because their interests have been conflicted, then now they began fighting the militia. And the evidence of this is that the SAF has been, since the start, the beginning of this war, have started forming another militia, such as Special Operation Forces and Al-Barra ibn Malik. These are all militias being formed by the military and by the NCP in order to counter the RSF. So now the widespread of a large numbers of mercenaries who were brought from different neighboring countries, such as Central African Republic, Chad, Mali, Niger. These mercenaries, in addition to the tribal militias, are very, very difficult to control them. Especially, for example, now the RSF is talking about having more than 1 million soldiers fighting in Sudan, in addition to its tribal militias, which is known as resistance bodies. So it will be very difficult to control this significant number of militias, because there are reports indicating that about 800 tribal militia from CAR joined the RSF, and the commander of under the command of Ali Dirasa. So this Ali Dirasa is from Fallata tribe, and he is from Central Africa, and he's known of a militia commander. So now with 800 personnel, he has joined to fight with the RSF, and 2,000 fighters from CAF, Chadian arm opposition, also have joined the RSF, in addition to approximately 3,000 fighters from Mali, Niger, have also joined the fighting in Sudan. So when the war is over, those fighters will not return to their countries unarmed. Most likely, they may be used, or they might be used by another country or any other groups to destabilize the countries, especially Chad, because the government of Sudan is accusing Chad of hosting the RSF militia, as well as opening up the airport for them to bring their military support and so on. So this militia will form a threat to the neighboring countries. So the other danger of the militia is not only the widespread looting and violation they committed, but also the occupation of lands of the indigenous population. There are some reports indicating that there are 150 cases of land occupation being recorded, including houses, farms across Darfur, mainly in El Geneina, Zalingi, and Niala. So I have been in touch with some human rights defenders who are still there in Darfur, and they confirm that many Arabs have confiscated the land of people who have displaced from those areas, Niala, Geneina, and so on. Especially in El Geneina, they are only targeting the land and farms of Masalit. So this is the danger of the militia, because the indigenous population of those areas, they will never keep quiet. They might also think of retaliating and taking back their confiscated and occupied land. So,
Okay, Musab,
yes.
can you summarize in 2 to 3 minutes? Sorry.
Okay. So in conclusion, what I would like to say is that West Darfur in particular has a very complicated issue. It is the issue of land occupation. It is the issue of sexual violation, and they are desperately those issues are desperately need to be seriously addressed, because if we leave the issue for the government and military and these militias, they will never resolve them. So I think this the problem of land occupation and the problem of holding perpetrators accountable need international intervention in order to resolve the problem. So thank you very much for your listening, and I will stand ready for any question you might have. Thank you very much.
No. بعد ما ينتهي.
بعد ما ينتهي خالد. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdulmajid, for giving us this informative information about the situation in Darfur. Now we are moving to the perspective, the overview of Abul Qasim Imam about the social and political dynamics of conflicts in Darfur. Abdulmajid Imam is a politician and key leaders in armed struggle in Darfur. He was one of the signatures of Darfur governor of West Darfur after the signing of Darfur peace agreement statement, and he is also state minister of the Ministry of the Federal Government. He gave us his point of view, but unfortunately, because of the unstable internet connection, Mr. Khalid will briefly summarize his idea. The floor is yours, Mr. Khalid.
So first of all, I'm so glad to be here, and I'm actually so glad also to see like a lot of friends like Harry Cross and Sarah Kreta. Actually, it is a pleasure to be here. And as my colleague mentioned that I received actually 3 audios like before like 5 minutes. I'm just trying to summarize it and to explain his point of view. And I think like he's like as a politician and also as a governor of the West Darfur state, his perspective of seeing stuff will be so important. So he's in the first audio, he begins his opinion by explaining that the current war problem, it was like a long extension of like a problem who's like has been going since the independence of Sudan. And also he make like most of the Sudanese politicians, he make like very like citation from the book of Mansour Khalid and blaming the elites who was controlling the country since the independence. And he's like the biggest problem of the Sudanese nation is like the managing the diversity that we have in Sudan. And what she's like, it was always the issue of ruling Sudan. It was always according to the ideas of the ruler, of the governor, and the gang around him. So it was always he was like repeating in his audio how like solving Sudanese problem it will be always easier of like establishing a real state rather than just like being victim for the ruler or for the governor who's like controlling the state. As I mentioned before, he started that those problems that we have right now among this war is like a long extension for like very deep issues. We have it since the independence. After the arrival of National Congress, this problem become more complicated. And because the regime of the Nagas make the state like a property for themselves, not for the like a real state in Sudan. And their language was always hostile. It was like a language of like a war and confronting others. And for sure for him, for the speaker, that speaking by his name, he's saying that it's like it is normal to have this kind of language from the Inqaz leaders because they came to the power in the back of a tank. And he said that this hostile behavior relieved all the complicity of existing in Sudan. And also he said that, like he said in his like audio, that like the Inqaz regime worked for years of legalize the Arab militias. Although this politics started from the era of al-Ummah party, when they, for the first time, they established what they call it al-Marahil, but Inqaz make it more bigger and by their politics to legalize their existing. And also he mentioned like a police called the police al-Zihniya. I'm just trying to, I didn't get this point from him. But also speaking about other militias, was called like the Borders Guard, like Haras al-Hudud. And he said that for sure, this started from the Ummah party in their period of controlling Sudan, but it's become more difficult and more clear after Inqaz came. And after that, like in his second audio, he speak about the rise of Yahya Boubalad. And from that point, the military mobilization started and the counter mobilization occurred from the other parties, which the other rebel movement. And every party, like in Inqaz or their opposition, they starting to play this kind of game in the demographic situation in Darfur, like by using some tribes and give them like saying that this war is against the tribe, not against the state, or not for political issues. All these kind of factors made Darfur like a lawless state. And especially with the ongoing war happening in Darfur. And Darfur, for sure, it was exceptional situation. He had an exceptional situation because like they felt like so Darfur like facing for a long time kind of like trap of fragility in all the state. This started with a tension in the Libyan borders, and also with a Chadian movement that they use Sudan as a source for their attacks against the regime in Chad. And also he mentioning that one of the biggest factors was like helping the Sudanese movement, like rebel movement, is the long borders between Chad and Sudan. He mentioned that is like we have like 1,300 kilometers of borders between the two countries, between the both countries. It's like made Darfur kind of chaos, the set of chaos for long decade. And the stick that the farmers used before to with their animals to protect them, right now it became a Kalashnikov. And so he mentioned that also those kind of factors made Darfur kind of different from other parties who's facing war in Sudan. He mentioned South Darfur and the Blue Nile. But because the tension in Sudan, in the Libyan borders, and also the Chadian movement, made Darfur kind of exceptional situation. And the other factor for him that made Darfur, the war in Darfur kind of different, was the fall of the Gaddafi. And this, in that time, like a group of militias, like he called them the cross-border militias, started to smuggling weapons to Sudan and started to work in other countries like the Central African Republic and eventually Sudan. Finally, I think like the point of view that he explained to us in his audio, most of the people who's like participating in this conference must to hear it. It was in Sudanese Arabic, but it will be so useful and it will be more clear from what did I said. I just try to make like a short summary to what did he said, but it will be more useful to hear him and to discuss with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Siraj, for making this effort. It's like short notice. Yeah. Now we are moving to Mr. Mohammed Al-Badawi.
No,
Sorry?
Maybe we can have
A small
question, specific question for the different presentation. And after we have a global discussion between the three presentations, maybe just if some people online or in the room have specific question to ask to the speakers, maybe you can do it now and we will have another discussion after the third presentation. But if there is no specific question, we can.
I think we can.
There is some.
Okay.
For a time that the people online start to raise their question. Musab, I have a few comments and some questions for you. First, the UN panel of experts about Darfur just released their last report, and they are talking about 10 to 15,000 dead people in El Geneina, and 2,000 more in November in Ardamata. So, how do you react to this figure? Because you were not presenting exactly the same figure. So, how do you explain the difference? Because they don't say exactly how they arrive to this specific figure to 10 to 15, which is quite enormous. So I want you to maybe to say something if you have like an idea. And I have another question, two other questions which are more specific. That you didn't talk much about the Juba Peace Agreement signatories during your presentation, but during the transition, some of them get some power inside West Darfur, and how these change of power, even if it's not complete, have fuel or maybe fuel the dynamics of conflict locally. Because you were talking a lot about the old regime, but the vacuum of power and the change of local power have also could raise or fuel this local conflict. So this is the second question. And the third one, I'm sorry, it's a lot of questions. The third one is more, again, it's about the political context, but you said a lot, it's the Kazan or the old regime that have fueled this conflict, but how you explain that specifically in El Geneina and specifically with the Masalit, and there has been that much massacre and that much local conflict. How do you articulate the national conflict with the local one, and why it did not happen in some other place at the same range? So maybe it's a wide question, but it's just to fill the discussion. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. Let me begin with the last question. So you are asking why the same problems between Arab and Masalit are not happening elsewhere. So what I would like to mention is that the problem between Arab and Masalit is a historical problem. It started from 1994 over problems over land and over crop destruction. So, and because of the historical marginalization, and because of lack of development in Darfur and in West Darfur in particular, so people have not been able to resolve the problem between Arab and Masalit amicably without going into violence. This is one. The other thing is that during the old regime, all native administration, not only of Arab and Masalit, but also of the native administration of many other tribes have been politicized, and they were supporting the old regime. Because let me tell you something. When somebody is killed in West Darfur, if it is Arab or Masalit, then the native administration will gain a lot of money from that kind of killing, because they will take the lead and pretend that they are going to resolve the problem. So when in the process of resolving the problem, so they ask for ransom, they ask for money from the perpetrator. And also they take money from the relative of the deceased person. So for them, for the native administration, destabilization of the security situation is an interest for them. So they cannot even live in a time of peace. So they only need, let me tell you something. In 2016, office of Al-Wali was occupied by IDPs from Mulli, place called Mulli, 20 kilometers south of El-Geneina. There was a state governor from the NCP who wanted to find an end to the corruption being exercised by the members of the NCP. Then he started doing some reformation. And the members of NCP were not happy about that kind of reformation. So what they did, they went to the national security and they complained that they are not happy with the state governor and they don't want to see him in West Darfur. He has to be sacked. Then the national security told the native administration and other members of the NCP to go and create problem in a place. Then they can ask the people to come and occupy his office so that they can find justification for sacking him. They went to the Sultan and they told him, because Sultan also was not happy about that wali. So Sultan told them to go and create the problem in that particular place. And then they they assign somebody to bring them into the wali's office. They came and they occupied the office, and then the national security just wrote a report. The following day, the wali was chased. So this is the way how people and how the native administration, the community leaders, politicians are living in West Darfur. And the other thing, in other places, we don't find the same problem as Arab and Masalit in the Geneina, because simply they are somehow aware of the plans of the NCP and they don't want to engage their community in violence. That is why they don't want to engage. The other thing, because there is no historical conflict between tribes. That is why sometimes even when they don't find any justification for creating problem or for creating problem, then they will create their own contradiction in order to create that problem. The other thing is that in West Darfur, the government is dominated by tribes, not by political affiliation, not by presenting your political manifesto, and so on and so forth. If you are affiliated to a majority of a certain tribe and you have supporters, then you might be appointed. So in West Darfur, the power has been dominated historically between two tribes, Arab and Masalit. So other tribes do not really have representation because they look at them as a minority. And therefore, unless you are affiliated or you have a strong connection with influential politicians, then you will not be able to have any higher position at the government. So after the downfall of al-Bashir regime, yes, there was a changing in the power structure, but the tribal affiliation remained the same. So the first wali to be appointed by the civilian-led government was Muhammad Abdullah Ad-Duma, and he's also affiliated to Masalit tribe. But because he was supported also by the resistance committee, by freedom and change forces. He was supported by them. But in addition to that, he was also supported fully by his tribal members. So that is why there was no that much power structural changes. The Juba Agreement, it may have some influence, or it may have also some, or it has contributed somehow to the conflict in Darfur. But still, if you look at other states like Zalingi and al-Bashir, you find that the state governors who were appointed by the civilian-led government were affiliated to the armed groups that are considered to be Juba Peace Agreement signatories. So in al-Bashir, the majority of the population there are affiliated to Zaghawa tribe. And then they were given a position of the state governor. That is why there was no any tribal problems there. In addition to that, also the people of al-Bashir are, most of the majority of the people of al-Bashir have been living peacefully among themselves because they are well educated. They are well educated. They are most educated people in Darfur. In Zalingi, the situation is somehow a little bit different from al-Bashir. The governor who was appointed by the civilian-led government is a civilian person, and he's a well-known human rights defender and political, civil society activist, Adib. And Adib also was supported by his tribe because the majority of the population in Zalingi are Fur. So they're also supporting him. And he was also supported by the native administration and so on and so forth. So the last question with regards to the UN panel.
Musab, maybe if you can answer just quickly for the last, your last answer, because after we have still some presentation. Sorry to ask you that, but just more, few minutes, please.
Should I give you a few minutes?
Yeah, can you answer shortly, because we have the presentation after. Sorry to ask you that.
Okay, the last question is with regards to the UN panel and the outcome of the figures that they have presented. To be honest, I cannot say that the figures that I have is realistic or 100% correct, because the situation in which the atrocities being committed was so difficult for any person to move or to get realistic and accurate information. So I am not really sure about the figures that I have. That is why I was saying at the beginning of the presentation that the information that I will present here needs to be further verified. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if any one of our online guests want to ask questions to you, the next speaker, or just give the floor for the other. Okay. So now we are going to give the floor for Tahir Khalid, who is a Sudanese civil society activist. He has been working for more than 13 years on issue related to the development of democracy and peace building in Sudan. Mr. Khalid has a master's degree in conflict and security and development from the University of Sussex and postgraduate diploma in development studies from the Development Studies and Research Institute at University of Khartoum. So thank you so much, Mr. Khalid, for giving us your valuable time to discuss the social and political dynamics of the conflict in Darfur. The floor is yours. Thank you.
The microphone is not on.
He's muted, huh?
Mr. Tahir?
Tahir?
Mr. Tahir? Khalid, are you with us?
بنسأل فيك اسمه
أستاذ طاهر معنا؟ أستاذ طاهر إذا سامعنا بس unmute yourself please.
He's trying
to connect.
Yeah.
هو أي واحد فيهم مش آخر واحد؟
You'll leave and come again.
Okay.
Start again.
You can close the video if you don't want to.
Yes.
It's just when you talk, it's
yes. Okay.
better for people to see you. Okay, so I have to accept just a minute.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity. And it was very interesting presentations. I'm looking forward to give maybe some valuable insights in what's being said and raised in these presentations. Maybe I need to start with like a bit of historical background, because what I realized is that, okay.
If it's
so
for you, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to start with a bit of maybe a historical background, because what I realized that the conflict in Darfur is somehow oversimplified in many of the analytical in many of the narratives. So I mean, like there is a need somehow to not to decontextualize the conflict in Darfur, and also not to depoliticize the conflict in Darfur. I mean, first to start with, it's not the problem in Darfur, it's the problem of Sudan in Darfur, as the late John Garang Dimapure, the co-founder of the founder of the SPLM, Sudan People Liberation Movement, who fought the central austerity for almost 22 years, put it clearly that it's not the problem of South Sudan, it was the problem of Sudan in South Sudan. So yes, there are some internal elements of this conflict in Darfur, but it also has its roots in the colonial legacy. It has its roots in the state formation, in the post-colonial state, and actually the same issues that we as Sudanese are facing now are the same issues that were faced by the past generations since before the independence. How to build a unified Sudan, how to address the issue of unequal development, how to address the issue of identity, diversity management, equal citizenship, and so on. So these are the issues that persistent and continued, like to spare up here and there in Darfur, in South Sudan, in South Kordofan, Nuba Mountains, Blue Nile, and so on. Adding to that, also the issue of the development, what development that as Sudanese we should look for. Maybe, as you know, also Sudan is a very big country. It was the biggest country in Africa. Now it's the third biggest country in Africa. So it's very hard to contain Sudan within one region. And this is why you may see now that with the current war of the 15th of April, there are these efforts in Jeddah. You have Jeddah platform where they is sponsored by the American and the Saudis, and you have also the IGAD. You have the Arab leagues also involved. And then recently with this fight, people in Sudan started to hear about the belt, the Sahel. So the Sahel was not very common in the public perception of the Sudanese, but now it has become an issue. So at least even the names of the countries that is along the Sahel region has become now very common in the public media among the commoners. So this point it implies like thinking of the war in Sudan with more regional perspective, because as I believe, addressing the issues of Sudan contributes to the stability in the region, mainly in the Horn of Africa, in the Sahel, in the neighboring countries. This one of the issues that was missed in all the previous attempts to address the issue of conflict in Sudan. This is now one of the issues that I guess we need to think more of a regional perspective toward the issues of Sudan, because there are some certain similarities between Sudan, Darfur, and the countries of the Sahel. For instance, when we speak about the cross-border movement, so we often look at the migration as a south-north movement, or sometimes when we counter this narrative, we speak about the south-south migration. But this movement across the belt of the Sahel, which is also a belt like a transition. So in terms of environment, etc., very similar in terms of scarcity of resources. And also some dates are very common. So like, for instance, thinking of what happened in Darfur without taking into account the drought that hit the Sahelian region in the mid-70s and in the 80s would never lead to any better understanding of the conflict and how to deal with it. So you have this as an element like the drought, the desertification, the fragility, the population growth, the high youth unemployment rate, and then the historical linkages across the Sahel. And even when you look at Sudan, for instance, in terms of like spiritual beliefs, or like when you look at the Sufis, you have almost the western part of Sudan has more or less similar kind of following the same sects, for instance, Tijaniya, which is not only in Sudan, it's in Sudan, in other countries in the Sahel region. So there is a lot between these countries and Darfur, and also this is this should be thought about as in a way to address this problem of the stability in Darfur and in Sudan and generally in the Sahel region. Another point that I also would like to drag the attention to is that despite all the very gloomy picture now in Sudan, I guess we are closer to address our issues than ever before. For instance, now with the what is different in the 15th of April war is that the war in Sudan has a long history. It started since before the independence, since 1953. And Sudan has witnessed, as you may know, also the longest civil war in sub-Saharan Africa and the worst humanitarian crisis in Darfur and so on. This time, the war has threatened the central authority. So it's not mastered by the central authority at the peripheries. No, it comes from the peripheries to the center of the state. So now this state has, as I can see now, has expired. I mean, in the sense of reproducing itself, reproducing the hegemony, reproducing the ruling elites, and so on. This factor could also enable the Sudanese people, when I say Sudanese people, as a citizen and as communities, as people, as groups, to come together for the first time to think of how to live together. What I realized and what made me actually very optimist, and this is actually missed in most of the interventions of the peace actors, taking the last experience of the pro-mediation just a couple of days ago, bringing together the armed groups and trying to stabilize the situation in Darfur, is that they don't see the community strengths, the resilience of the Darfurian, for instance. I counted here during the transitional period, number of peacefully organized sit-ins all over Darfur, okay? and like for instance, in northern Darfur, I counted from 2019 to 2022, 8 locally organized sit-ins demanding improving of services, water, security, education, and so on. In South Darfur, 3 huge sit-ins. And you can count, like in other states in Darfur. All these peaceful expression, okay, are not actually expected in a region where it has a long history of armed struggle. So it was actually striking to me that people still adhere to peaceful means to express their demands and to bring together their power and to challenge the authority. And they succeeded in many cases to achieve their demands. The last case I remember was a sit-in in an IDP camp very close to al-Bashir called Zamzam, where they imposed on the regional authority of Darfur their demands, getting ambulances, rehabilitating primary health center, digging water wells, and recruiting some of the youth in the camp into the police, into the regular forces, and recruiting also the midwives in the Ministry of Health. Thinking of this now, I guess this is very positive, and it should be seen by, recognized and supported by academia, by peace actors, because this what actually also tipped the balance within Darfur. Just dragging the attention also to one case in Darfur now. Yes, RSF is a very powerful group in Darfur, but in many cases it had to succumb to to many dynamics and factors. For instance, they couldn't attack al-Bashir because there was a very high voice of people in al-Bashir saying enough is enough. We are already hosting many of the IDPs, and this is the capital of the region. And then also the experience of the armed groups, for instance, thinking of the armed groups in Darfur now, trying to represent themselves as civilian protection troops. So, like thinking of these small things brings to the attention that there is a deep belief in peaceful transition in Darfur. It has to be supported. Within the current war, within the fight and the bullets and so, there was so many initiatives, amazing initiatives in many states in Darfur. Just yesterday, I was following the graduation of group of armed troops entitled on the protection of civilians. They are trained on the non-violence. Thinking of these examples is very important. This is one part, and actually, I guess, when you look at the countries of the Sahel, okay, I was just looking yesterday on how sizes of the armies or the armed groups, the non-state armed groups in the region. The biggest, the bulk is in Darfur. The bulk is in Darfur. So it's very central to think of Darfur at the beginning of a stability project throughout the belt, but not stability in the sense of keeping things calm as it was or trying just to contain it. No, in a very transformative way that gives people voice, that brings power to the people on the ground, that also understand the history and the politics of the fight in Darfur. It's not as simple as it's portrayed, Arabs versus non-Arab, because the fight among Arab groups, as the recent case in South Darfur between Bani Halba and Salamat, is a very stark example that it's not as simple as Arab versus non-Arab or herders versus farmers and so on. Plus, also understanding that Darfur is a very diverse to the extent that you cannot count 4 names in your family or exclusively originated from one specific ethnic group. It's very diverse, like you can see it there. Plus also the Hakura, the land, because what we should also understand that the tribal identity in Darfur is a social construct. It was not as a political identity as it is now. That was made. So there was a long process of detribalization process in Darfur along the history of state formation throughout 6 or 5 centuries. But that was made later and was exploited later. So this is not the thing that you start with. Tribal identity is very fluid, and it's not a thing that you can start with. And so my point here is that this is the role of the academia. I mean, I'm just thinking of a role to play, a role that, for instance, your esteemed university could play with the peace research centers in the different 5 states in Darfur. Each university in Darfur, we have 5 states, we have 5 universities. Each one has a peace and research center. If there is kind of any joint project, like to study the history of the conflict in Darfur, the state formation and so on, at least to build the counter narrative, the liberative narrative that brings people together, not just stick to the oversimplistic explanation to what is happening there. This could be very, very, very helpful and very important. Plus, I see also a room for a Darfurian dialogue, which I see now, like as I said while I was speaking about the experiences of the peace actors, they focus mainly on despite its importance, I mean, like bringing the armed groups together because they have the ability to destabilize the region. But we should also think of people, the community, because in the end of the day, they are those who are recruited in the fight, those who are mobilized in the fight, those who have the political cost. They can put it here or there. So they have power, and we should invest more on this power. For the Sahel, because I don't want to move away from the end point, it's very clear that from the presentation of Musab and from what you know and from that this the Darfur historically is very much within the historical context of this region. It's not just now, it's since the 18th century, the empire of Rabih Fadlallah Zubair, who fled to Chad and then would die, and then there are so many linkages, but the point is where to start. My assumption is that you start with where there is the weight of the problem, like the big size of the armed groups. They some sort of legacy of governance structure that could somehow thrive if being supported and so on. Yeah, thank you, and don't want to keep you listening too much to what my points, but would love to have some questions if there is any. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khalid. Mr. Tahir? Sorry. Yeah. One of yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Tahir Khalid, for this valuable information. And we will give the floor for my colleagues and the online participants if they have any questions. Yes.
So my question is to Mr. Khalid. Can you give your name? Sure. My name is Tala. I was in Sudan up until the war, working on public health, and then I moved to Senegal because I had this understanding of the Sahel that you talked about, and how our realities in Sudan can be echoed throughout the region. I was just wondering, for the war itself, to what extent do you see the echo? To what extent do you see similarities between what is happening in Sudan and the rest of the countries? I'm thinking especially of the current countries that had, like population movements, but also governments trying to separate from interference and previous colonial powers. It's not something we have necessarily in Sudan and in Darfur, although someone could argue that whatever is happening between central and periphery can be somehow understood under this lens. We also had Mr. Ali talking about the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and their implications in our war. So I was just wondering to what extent you would link what is happening in Sudan and what is happening in Darfur more specifically with the rest of the Sahel region in terms of very like security and war approaches to what is happening. Okay.
I think I take one question.
Yes, thank you.
Maybe I have one question also about this question of Sahel. It's you say that in the social media you have a lot of articles. I don't know exactly talking about Sahel, but is it just something for you that it is like due to the current war, or because of international networks or something like that? Because I understand the question of militias in Darfur, but yes, it seems to be more far when you are talking about the war in Khartoum, the link with Chad, Niger, and what's happening there. So it's not clear for me. Maybe we can start with
these two questions.
Okay. Thank you for the geopolitical dimension. Maybe Musab. I see Musab raising his hand. Maybe يا مصعب عندك مداخلة So for the geopolitical dimension of the conflict, we cannot take away the struggle over the revenue of the, we have a rentier economy in Sudan. It's simply the gold now is the backbone of the economy in Sudan, and it's now under the competition between the local actors, mainly SAF and the RSF. Plus, also you have the biggest importer of gold, which is United Arab Emirates, and it's a rising regional power, and it's not just only in Sudan; it's somewhere else in the region. And you have also the Wagner and the competition over the resources of the countries in the Sahel. So all these are definitely factors that are interlinked, and that we cannot just look at what's going on in Sudan without carefully thinking of or taking into account these issues. But my point is that yes, it's a major issue, but what is more important is that we need also to look at the history and at the other issues, and this is also somehow linked to the second question. For instance, there is a big issue, not in Sudan, in the Sahel countries, wherever you go along this, related to the state building. For instance, when I said the war of 15th of April brought for the first time some informations about Mali, Niger, Chad, it was not part of a public opinion, a general understanding of the people here, to the extent that people used to confuse names of cities with countries. This is not the orientation. The orientation is mainly whether Mediterranean or eastward. For some big groups that have, definitely, this is not when I say Sudanese, this is also very reductive, because Sudanese are diverse. But I mean, what I mean by Sudanese, I mean elite, the TV, the radio, the education system. So simply many groups in Sudan were invisible. Before this war, I remember just there was a huge protest that coincided or organized in 5 states of Sudan, organized by Hausa groups. So, for instance, Hausa are seen by al common narrative as less Sudanese or non-Sudanese. Okay, they asserted themselves. That was for the people on that was the first time to see and recognize other communities and groups in Sudan. The same as how they look at the culture of the troops of the RSF. For instance, what they wear, the turban, the kadamol. Okay, this is for them. This is new, and they don't know how to relate this. Is it culturally Sudanese? Is it coming from outside? Is it from Niger? My point is that the issue of state building is now on the table for the first time, and that Sudanese have to take this seriously, because it's either you come up with a national project where all the groups see themselves, or you end up with a disintegrated Sudan. Disintegrated Sudan, this is a recipe for a regional chaos for the coming 10, 20, 30 years. That was the point. This is why I think there should be some a lot of attention to the situation in Sudan, because of these factors, like the size of Sudan that is not contained within one region, plus also looking at population density in Sudan. It is attractive, right? It's attractive. It could solve a problem for many areas in the region. Plus also it's surrounded by 7 countries. 5 of these 7 countries have experienced conflict at least in the last 2 years. Chad, Ethiopia, Libya, still now, so on. So that was the point. For the gold mining and how it is very illustrative in understanding the linkages between Darfur, Sudan, and Sahel. I guess you have all the expert there. I mean, my friends and Muhammad. I hope that I somehow addressed the question.
We lost you for a few minutes, but we understood that we have Mohammed with us, or the gold expert. Does someone else have questions maybe to ask, or we can open this discussion maybe, or just to react to No, the chat, it's all the message.
Someone is raising his hand.
Okay,
Actually, he's raising his hand.
Harry, let's.
Hello, thank you both to the organisers and to the presenters. It was very interesting. So I couldn't find the raise hand button, so I did it manual. I wanted to ask a question about, it was alluded to in the first presentation, but who's fighting on behalf of the Sudanese armed forces and the Burhan side of the civil war in Darfur? Because I think we've all come to know the RSF and where the RSF came from, those of us who've been following this. But I think the Sudanese armed forces, in one regard, they're a continuation of the Bashir regime, but in many other regards, that coalition has really been reshaped by the transition and then the falling apart of the transition. So I'd really like anyone knowledgeable to speak to that, please. Thank you.
The problem is maybe not knowledgeable. I don't know, maybe someone. Tahir Musa, maybe.
Yeah. Yes. If I hear the question well, I guess it's
They're giving the platform.
yeah, since it's we are somehow divided, right? Very polarized. So one of the characteristics of the wars of the 15th of April was the polarization along ethnic lines. So many of tribal groups here and there in the west of Sudan or in the east or in the north, they come out and announce siding with one of the fighting parties. But actually that was not the initial stance that they took. Before the outbreak of the war, they took a very brave and very wise stances. Many of them warned against the ongoing militarization in Darfur and in other areas. So before the outbreak of the war, they took a very positive stance against the looming the looming of the war in the horizon. After the outbreak of the war, I also remember while documenting peace initiatives by traditional forces, that for instance in South Darfur, the main social base of the RSF, for instance, like 80 tribal group, they come together and they drafted principles for social peace in South Darfur. They put together like 13 principles. And when you look at the names of tribal groups, they are representing the community in Darfur, from the Arabs, non-Arabs, herders, farmers, whatever. So they come together. But yes, war has superseded this. That was a problem. But plus this as one of the factors in the equation, there is also the old regime, and it's not a secret because it was announced a couple of days ago by the third person in the South, that he put it literally like this, that large groups of Islamists are fighting beside South. From al-Barra ibn Malik, the battalion, as mentioned by my colleague Musab, is one of the groups that are fighting beside South. It's a fundamentalist group that's fighting beside South. But also, I mean, like social strata, mainly privileged social strata that was part of the incubators of ruling elites. This is also, they feel their privileges as threatened. So many of them, they took side based on what would be their future in after they. You have these elements here and there. So the tribal polarization and the ethnic polarization is very high. The fundamental ideological is part of this also war. Plus also, it's not internally just motivated, because we may with the recent development in the Red Sea and Iran, and so we might very soon get into a higher level of regionalization of the war in Sudan, which I am afraid that would really take the war for many and many years.
And can I ask a follow-up question? When you mention what you refer to as Islamist fundamentalist groups, are they fighting with SAF out of an ideological commitment to what was once the NCP and Islamist government? Or is it more reflecting sort of local, ethnic, tribal, regional, whatever alliances? Or have they got a vested sort of economic or status interest? What's their motivation for this alliance?
Yeah, as you said, it's vested. It's not, it's not very, there is no very like a fine line of demarcation. It's very vested. Yes. But it's you can actually trace it in the media. It's very clear. Like a discourse that is provided it somehow intersects with this. But it's very hardly promoted, because SAF itself has a very pragmatic positions throughout the last 4 years. But it's vested, yes.
Can I add something to with regards to the question, and who or which ethnic group is currently fighting alongside with SAF in Darfur? So if we look at the problem, the conflict between Salamat and Bani Halba, and both of them are affiliated to Arab ethnicity, but they fought severely among themselves for the last couple of months, and it appears that Salamat are supporting SAF through their native administration. So it could be 1 or 2 or 3 native administration who believe that their interest, their political and economic interest with SAF and not RSF. So that is why they are fighting. while the Bani Halba are also, because they have many of their youth affiliated with the RSF, and also their native administration also have been given a lot of money. So that's why they are now fighting with the RSF. But you see, and in Genena, it was publicly announced by the Sultan of Masalit when he was in Egypt. In a press conference, he said that Masalit are fighting the Arab militia, and they are supporting SAF. So it is not something secret. It was publicly announced. And also we have Eranga also were armed by the SAF, and they also fought with Arab by proxy for SAF. So this is something very, very, very clear, because both parties to the conflict are seeking supporters, and the only way, I think, for them to get supporters is to get it through tribal polarization and mobilization. And the other thing also, the regional dimension. There are so many tribes who are sharing common culture, common heritage, and they are everywhere in the West African countries. Like when you look at the tribes that are taking part in the conflict in Sudan, you find that the majority of them are Arab. You can find them in Niger. You can find Arab in Mali, in Chad, in addition to Libya. So you can also find Fallata in Mali, in Chad, in Niger, Mauritania, all these places. So these tribes, pastoralist tribes, they have the so-called Faza. Faza is to support your tribe when they are in difficult time. So if a member of your tribe is being killed, then you can go and fight to take revenge. This is a common social practice and cultural practice among herders tribes. So that is why we are now seeing many mercenaries and militia are flowing from these neighboring countries to join their people. And sometimes also it can be manipulated by so-called Muslim and non-Muslim. Some people in Sudan have not become non-believers, so we need to fight them. So there are so many narratives and discourse of monopolizing people among herders tribes to come and fight. Thank you. I hope that will answer your question.
Is there any other questions or reaction?
Can I comment?
Yes, of course.
Thank you for the interesting presentations. I just wanted to comment on the last question of who is representing SAF and why.
Maybe you can say who you are.
My name is Arub Al-Faqih, University of Khartoum and University of Pariwit, a PhD student. My problem with this kind of categorical analysis of who is representing whom is that it as Khalid mentioned, it doesn't just oversimplify the categorization of the conflict, but also it keeps us blind from the dynamism of this war. And we are in a very exceptional situation where Sudan has always been a country that has been burning from its marginal sides, and now the war reached to the center, and then it started to expand further on the opposite direction. And I think this dynamism means also that the two fighting powers are also changing very, very significantly. So I don't think it is fair or easy to say that Arab-oriented groups are fighting and herders are fighting for the RSF versus others who are fighting for the SAF. For example, the RSF has the narrative that they are fighting against the Fulul or the Kaysan or the post-Bashir regime, but in fact they are using a lot of members from the NCP regime to be part of their leaders. This is for fact. The other thing is, on the other hand, there are also a lot of groups that are not supporting the SAF because they are a part of a Muslim ideology affiliation, but as a defense mechanism against the attacks of the RSF itself, or for a historical revenge from the RSF. And this is also a kind of functional, let's say, collaboration or kind of alienation with the SAF, just as a defense against the RSF. There is also, by the way, resistance committees affiliated young people in Khartoum who are fighting with the SAF as a way for protecting their neighbors from the occupation of RSF-related forces. And on the other hand, there are also farmers, herders, Arab and non-Arab groups like Nuba Mountains, affiliated soldiers on the SAF, also fighting despite their historical problem with the SAF now, because they have this idea that RSF, if they took over their places, it will be much more problematic. On the other hand, the RSF groups are not just Arab groups. We also have those who are coming for Ghanima, for literally taking over for looting. Some of them even, by the way, are coming from Gulf countries to participate in this. They are not just coming from Neiba or the Sahel. And we have what is called small or macro militias that has not had the chance to be part of the Juba Peace Agreement for the issue of representation, like the group that invented Jazeera with Kekel. And these kind of groups were the groups who couldn't find a political game that can be satisfying for their position, and they are now fighting with the RSF for the hope of getting something out of the cake. And I think this kind of dynamism is very, very important when it comes to who is playing with whom, and also to put the fact that even now in the Eastern Sudan, there is this kind of dynamic and actors of joining and rejoining, coming in and out of these two groups, and it will change across the board.
Thank you.
There is your hand. Tahir. Have you something to say? Have you got something to say?
No, that by accident, sorry. Sorry.
Okay, maybe, I don't know. I think the time is over. No?
Just something to say before we conclude. We would like to thank Mohamed Salah, for organizing and to inviting the speakers, and of course to thank all the speakers that accept to come to speak today. And thank you, Mohamed. Thank you for organizing. And Rafael.
Just give a small explanation, because Mohamed Badawi is really sorry, but he has an emergency reason that didn't allow him to come. Yeah. And so, and also for Abul Qasim, so thank you, Khalid.
No, I'm just like sorry, but just like we have to send his like audio for the others so they can share it and just to get his point of view.
Yeah, that would be good.
Completely.
And a big thanks also to Musab to accept just yesterday to complete, because we have many changes at the last moment. So yes, thanks for all the speakers. Yes, and Tahir, of course.
Yeah.
That's
شكراً.
good.
Merci.
Yeah, thank you.